DebraLee Hovey is the incumbent Republican candidate for the 112th District of the Connecticut House of Representatives. She is seeking her 6th term. DebraLee lives in Monroe with her husband and their 3 children, where they've lived for 14 years. Among her various activities, she is a member of the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts, the Council for Exceptional Children, the Association of Educational and Psychological Consultants, the Endangered Lands Coalition, the Newtown Bridle Lands Alliance, and the Board of National Women in Government. The Girl Scouts of the Housatonic Council, Inc. named Representative Hovey a 2007 Woman of Distinction. The honor recognizes women who serve their community and provide positive role models for girls. DebraLee graduated from the University of Maine, where she obtained undergraduate and master's degrees in education. She is currently a special education consultant. So it's great to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me.
So let's kind of jump right into it. What do you think you can do for Newtown residents as a re-elected state legislator entering her 7th term?
6th term.
6th term. All right. Early for both of us this morning.
That's all right. I think I work really hard for Newtown. Even though I represent a small fraction of the community, I've been pretty clear that that just doesn't happen. You know, you don't just put a little piece off to the side and say, oh, they're mine, but if you're over there, I can't help you or whatever. So I'm very active in Newtown, and I will continue to be very active in Newtown. I try to participate in the community as a whole. I have a very close relationship with the first selectman, and in fact, recently, because of circumstances, have been very involved with the first select woman around varying issues that Newtown has, trying to get some road issues cleared up, and Newtown's benefiting from some of the road work that's getting done on 25, and just recently had a constituent from Newtown inquire about what's going to happen on the upper end of 25, because they've got some issues around the Bear Hill Road, and so I'm in the mix, and I will continue to be in the mix. My expertise in education has definitely, I think, benefited Newtown. I was more than willing to go to bat for the special education families in this community when it seemed there were some things going on that weren't quite above board, and my colleague and I kind of put it out there, and which is unusual. Usually we don't, usually you don't mix state and local business, but we both felt very strongly that because it is overseen by the state, that we needed to be involved. So I guess what I would say is more of the same, and whatever anyone needs me to do.
So what do you think is the most pressing state issue facing Newtown, and how do we address it?
Oh, the most pressing issue is the economy. You cannot get around the fact that Connecticut has not grown for more than 20 plus years, and that we have some very highly educated young people who cannot find any opportunities in their communities, so they need to move out of state. And you can't get over the fact that in the 10 years that I've been an elected official, government spending has grown 55%, while your income, if you're still working, has only grown 20%. So the economy, growing jobs, trying to get the small entrepreneurs, which we know are the backbone of our communities, built up, getting banks to open up and start lending a little bit more again, especially those businesses that have proven that they are growing. The credit has just dried up for all of them, so they can't expand. We've got a lot of work to do in Connecticut.
What are some of the things the state can do, the state legislature can do to start addressing those issues?
In my mind, one of the primary things that we need to do is really look at this idea of banking. And, if small businesses or a sole proprietorship has a record of meeting their bills and, good credit ratings, then those banks need to loosen it up a little bit, and we need to invest in them. And of course, then, we've got some of the small entrepreneur loans that we did. That was part of the jobs bill, which was a good thing. But what happened in this last session was they opened it up to middle-sized companies, and that's now overwhelmed the loan program, and so no one's getting anything once again. It's that whole idea of kind of setting a course and sticking to it, letting it see itself grow and be productive, and then moving on, not rushing it too much, but being really steady about supporting the small businesses of the state. We also need to get tort reform under control. We are one of the most litigated states in the country. And so businesses aren't inclined to come here because we have, huge risks for them around, their liabilities. So that's a problem. We've got some big jobs ahead of us.
Well, the other thing that is on everybody's minds these days is property taxes. It's a very contentious issue when we get around budget time every year, it seems, and should the state be forcing communities to rely on the property tax for educational and municipal revenues? And if not, what are some of the other alternatives that we could explore?
This is one of those issues that gets bandied about all the time, and I'm very hardworking. But I'm not sure I have the answer on this one. The one thing I will say about the property tax is that is local control. That is, your money providing the services that you as an individual taxpayer, landowner, community member here in Newtown have as your priorities. It's not the state coming in and, regulating and mandating. Now, if the state would get off of the regulating and mandating bandwagon that it's on and free up our local municipalities and eliminate some of those mandates, then maybe your tax dollars would go further here at the property tax level. Great example are some of the education mandates. Newtown doesn't need to be involved in most of them because they do a great job of educating their kids. So focus on the 15 communities in the state that have significant educational issues. Put your mandates and your regulatory pieces in place there, but give our small communities that work hard, do a great job, relief from them, and let them funnel their tax dollars to other areas that are more important to them.
Yeah, that's an interesting approach, trying not to just have one size fits all, which really seems like what happens in state government. We come up with a plan, and bang, everybody's going to have to do it whether they need to or not.
Right. Right. One size fits all. We all know that doesn't work, especially we women. We know one size does not fit all. So
if you were to sum it up, why should Newtown residents vote for you again this election day?
I think, again, Gary, that it's important for people to vote for me again because I do really take their message to Hartford. I am their contact to what's going on in Hartford and to government. This community has a great deal of contact with me. I respond very quickly to my constituency, their issues, and I think I understand the community pretty well. And so I'm a hard worker. You see me working. It's not politics for me. It is all about public service.
Well, and sometimes too, people say people are in the job too long, and you're entering your 6th term, and yet, from that perspective, you have a different view of that in terms of what you can accomplish by being in office a little bit longer than 1 or 2 terms.
I do. I think that because of my relationships, especially my relationships across the aisle, I have some great relationships with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, which are in the majority, that I'm able to forge ahead with some legislation that a newcomer might not be able to. That having been said, when you come in your first 2 years, we were talking earlier about sometimes you have a gift of a piece of legislation so that you can, have that behind your name. But the really difficult stuff takes a while. I recently got legislation that I've been kind of picking away at for almost 8 years. And in the 11th hour of my 10th year, all of a sudden, after all that education and that kind of, for lack of a better word, just kind of nagging and not going away and forging new relationships and all of that, all of a sudden it came together and I ended up with exactly what I had wanted in the very beginning, but just wasn't, didn't want to, count my chickens, so to speak, before they had hatched. And so I just kind of picked away at it, compromising, educating, and not quite going away, keeping my eye on the ball. And I think as long as you have the love for the job and you're still out there and are still, meeting with the constituency, still actively involved in the community, not losing touch. Some people go to Hartford and become Hartford kind of central versus Newtown. That hasn't happened to me. I love Newtown, I love Monroe, and Hartford is a place I go to work, and even on those late nights in the legislature, I drive home. So,
well, it's great to have you here.
Thanks.
You so much for taking the time.
I appreciate it. It's a nice time. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope everyone will come out and vote on November 6th, and I hope they'll vote line A.
Well put. Okay, we're just